companies. You know them, you probably buy products from them. And while they are an all-encompassing part of our real world, in video games, they also exist. Because we can't even escape capitalism in games. In the real world, a lot of these companies are run by weird, ghoulish people, and they will definitely cause the end of our world one day. And in video games, it's pretty much the same. But these fictional companies expand and deepen the video game's world building. They can help ground the game and make it feel more realistic. And they provide a solid antagonistic force for us to defeat. So today, I want to talk about some of my favorite fictional companies in video games and explain how their existence in these games elevates the gameplay experience in different ways for these different games. So, without further ado, this is the best and worst fictional companies in video games. And I want to separate these companies into categories to help this video have a sense of flow. But first, let's start with a real company that I actually like. A lot of the games that I'm covering today have some really good audio, but my old headset, it's seen better days. But thanks to today's sponsor, Rig, I now have the R5 Max HD, which has immediately enhanced my audio experience, whether I'm gaming or editing this video right now. That's because this headset comes equipped with 40mm graphene Q drivers that are built from pure graphene material, allowing for advanced studio-grade game audio. You can connect the R5 Max HD to your PC, Mac, or mobile device, as well as gaming consoles, using the USB-C DAC. Connecting your R5 Max HD to the USB-C audio DAC instantly unlocks Dolby Atmos for headphones. You know, Dolby, like the theater. And this provides enhanced 3D audio rendering by Dolby on all compatible platforms. All that is fancy talk for it makes audio good. And with the Snap Block Mod system, you can seamlessly customize your headphones to fit your needs. You don't need this particular microphone? Fine. You can take it off completely. Just like that. And you can fully customize the mod plates and personalize your headset with swappable mod plates. So if you want to improve your audio experience, buy yourself a pair of R5 Max HDs by clicking the link in the description down below on Amazon or Shop Nacon. Thank you once again to Rick for sponsoring, but now let's get back to the video. I want to make it clear before I talk about any of these corporations, I'm not saying that I personally like what they're doing. I just really love what they add to their world as an antagonistic force. The stories that these companies provide us, the players, are pretty amazing. This is not me saying, yeah, I want this corporation in real life. It's me saying, damn, these corporations suck, and that makes these games awesome. Does that make sense? Cool. A vast majority of the bad guys in a lot of these video games are usually an evil corporation, because it's kind of easy to make a corporation seem evil because of greed. I wonder why that is, EA. But some of these corporations are next level evil, like evil for evil's sake. Like at a certain point, they're not in it for the money anymore. And I have a lot of examples here. Let's quickly speed run through a few of these because, let's face it, there's a lot of evil corporations. There's Unitology from Dead Space that sent you out on somewhat of a death mission under the guise of being a mining expedition. There's Armorcham in the Fear series. The IMC is the main antagonist of the universe of Titanfall and also Apex Legends. Ryan Industries from BioShock made the entire underwater city of Rapture. Probably thought he was doing things for the good of mankind. It led to a pretty obvious outcome. There's the Arasaka Corporation in Cyberpunk, which is one of the biggest evil mega corporations. And in a game full of evil mega corporations, this one definitely takes the cake. Speaking of cake, Aperture Science from Portal is probably one of the most famous evil corporations in video games, conducting science experiments on live human beings, including the protagonist, Shell, in the Portal series. And everything that Aperture does is essentially the catalyst that makes this game function. They're the antagonist, but they also created the puzzles that is the game. I think what makes this fictional company so memorable is that they're kind of goofy about it, and the cake actually wasn't a lie, so not as evil as you'd think. I've played basically every single Assassin's Creed game, and I really don't understand what Abstergo does. The Assassin's Creed storyline has gotten very convoluted, so while I did like Abstergo Industries in the beginning of the Assassin's Creed series, over time, it's kind of lost a lot of its charm. And there are countless other evil corporations that I didn't even mention from so many different gaming franchises. So if you want to list some in the comments, go for it, but I want to focus primarily on two main ones. First, Vault-Tec from Fallout and the Umbrella Corporation from Resident Evil. because both of these really seem like evil corporations for the sake of being evil. Let's first start with the Umbrella Corporation. The amount of money that the Umbrella Corporation was making off of being a pharmaceutical company just wasn't enough. So they also created bioweapons, and eventually they ended up making a virus that created abominations and eventually leaked into the water supply of Raccoon City, and now the entire world of Resident Evil is in a zombie apocalypse. Thanks, Umbrella Corporation. And this is all because the CEO wanted to find a way to live forever. And I guess he did so. And now let's talk about Vault-Tec. Vault-Tec is one of the most evil companies ever devised in all of video game history. Their entire original business model was creating vaults for the nuclear apocalypse. Over 100 vaults spread through the United States of America before the nukes dropped. They are heavily implied to be one of the reasons why the nukes got dropped in the first place. Not 100% confirmed, but it doesn't hurt their business. So making money off the end of the world is already kind of an evil business model, but somehow it gets worse. Vault-Tec sold itself to a bunch of investors on the idea that they would use these vaults to experiment on the human beings in these vaults. And a majority of these experiments were completely inhumane, pushing a lot of the Vault Dwellers to their physical and psychological limits. And whenever you're playing one of the Fallout games and you run into these vaults, you'll notice a lot of these vaults are abandoned. Not because the people left, but most of the time because they ended up killing each other or themselves, going crazy because of these experiments. For example, in Vault 11, they had to vote for someone to kill off every single year or else everybody would die. So they did this until there was barely anybody left alive. Until finally, the final few remaining Vault Dwellers in that vault agreed to not vote for anybody. And then, after they didn't vote for anybody, it turned out that that was all just a lie, to test if people would follow orders like this without question. So people literally killed each other for no reason. There's other vaults that were kept intentionally slightly open to expose them to radiation. Vault 27 had over 2,000 people inside of it, to test how overcrowding affects people. One of the most famous vaults is Vault 112, where all of the Vault Dwellers were in a simulation. The point I'm trying to make, though, is that Vault-Tec is super duper evil, but they're all over the Fallout universe, and tied together all of the Fallout games. The protagonist of every Fallout game is usually a Vault Dweller, escaping the vault and exploring the wasteland. And I think that's why, personally, Vault-Tec is my favorite evil corporation in all games. Now, on a less serious note, let's talk about the Parody Corporations. These are the corporations that are pretty much in the game to be satirical about our world's corporations. A perfect example of this is pretty much everything in Grand Theft Auto. From McDonald's to Home Depot to CNN, there is a GTA equivalent to all of them. And they're all fantastic. More recently, the Mario Kart universe created their own parody businesses throughout Mario Kart World. It's actually pretty cool. You can drive pretty much everywhere, and there will be a bunch of different companies for tires, for food, on billboards, on trucks, just plastered everywhere. And these logo designs are so adorable, incorporating tons of different Mario characters throughout. These are my favorite types of fake businesses because they just add this charm to the world. And you just want to slap them on a shirt and sell them at Disneyland, you know? Side note, why doesn't Nintendo have their own Disneyland? It always pissed me off that they decided to collaborate with Universal Studios. Why Universal Studios? Nintendo! You have enough money to just make your own world. You could have a Legend of Zelda land, you could have a Mario land, a Donkey Kong land, a Kirby land, a Star Fox land. Like, it's so obvious. And you have so much strong IP, you can essentially just make a Super Smash Bros. World with a few roller coasters and cute rides, and it would actually rival Disney. Mini rant over. But let's be honest, one of the best parody brands of all time is also from Fallout, and I'm talking about Nuka-Cola. Being an obvious rip of Coca-Cola, but with a very simple nuke design, is so genius. The bottles are shaped like little nuclear bombs. It's actually beautiful. But on top of that, Nuka-Cola ends up being a very important part of the actual game, because the main form of currency in the Fallout universe is bottle caps. I don't always drink soda, but when I do, I prefer Nuka-Cola. Now, I wouldn't be thorough if I didn't talk about the fictional military corporations. And these tend to be intertwined with government agencies of the future or of the post-apocalypse, like the SEAF, being the main forces of Helldivers. Sure, I could add these to the evil corporations category, but you play as the bad guys in this game, so it's a little different. There's corporations like the UESC in Marathon, or the ISAF in Ace Combat. If it's got a lame acronym, it's military-based. Technically, in the Fallout universe, The US military's main offshoot is the Brotherhood of Steel. I didn't want to include the Brotherhood of Steel in the evil corporations because there's a little bit more nuance to the Brotherhood of Steel. Yes, it's very easy to write them off as pretty bad people that don't want to deal with ghouls and super mutants. They're human supremacists. And overall, their entire organization is essentially a cult. But a lot of the time, they end up being more helpful than they are negative to you, the protagonist, unlike a more obvious evil entity like the Enclave. But they truly are a military organization. But to me, one of the most fleshed out and most interesting military corporations in all of video gaming history has got to be the UNSC from Halo. The more you deep dive into the UNSC's history, the more you realize, oh man, these guys are pretty bad people. Like kidnapping kids and turning them to super soldiers, is that something that we want to be proud of? Like sure, it just so happened that one of those super soldiers you made saved the entire universe, but like, you got a little bit lucky there, let's be honest. But I've always loved the way that the UNSC's weapon design, armor design, vehicle design, all of it is a very consistent aesthetic. And of course, the Spartan armor is just so iconic. This is a military brand I can get behind. And if we ever have a space war, I would kind of hope that this is how we do it in real life. Maybe with less of the child soldier thing, you know? Now, this is my new favorite type of video game corporation that has been included in some of my favorite games of all time, the sponsors. These are fake brands and companies that are only included in the video game to sponsor the player playing the game. Does that make any sense? Essentially, whatever you are doing in-game requires funding, so you end up needing a sponsor to fund your endeavors. It's very meta when you think about it. And one of the first games to ever do it was Borderlands. Borderlands has a ton of really iconic fictional corporations in their games. A majority of them are just weapon manufacturers, and all of them are vying for you, the Vault Hunter, to use their weapon. And one of my favorite parts about these different weapon manufacturers is that they all had their different gimmicks when it came to their individual weapon designs, which I thought was always a very neat and nice touch. And eventually one of those brands, Hyperion, got taken over by the villain Handsome Jack and then became an evil corporation. Look at us double dipping. So even these sponsor type companies can also add to the actual story of the game as well. But in multiplayer games is where they really start to shine. In Apex Legends, the Apex games are a actual real battle royale game that people watch and people become famous for. Like Ballistic is retired from it and then came back, just to give you an example. And so these games also require sponsors. One of the biggest sponsors was Hammond Robotics, which created the Harvester on World's Edge, among other things. Don't worry. Another example is Silva Pharmaceuticals, which was run by Octane's grandfather, and eventually he also sponsored the Apex games, until he died. And these different sponsors help shape the actual Battle Royale arena, creating different POIs, different areas, and adding to the lore. Remember when Apex Legends added to their lore? Most recently, the game Marathon added 6 different factions, and these factions provide you sponsor kits, which are essentially free loadouts, which I think is really neat because if you can successfully extract with it, you get a skin that matches that sponsor. So it's like you're over here rocking that brand in game. I think it's a very neat cycle, and I love the different designs of these different brands, especially Arachne. Arachne is just so saucy, man. Who would have thought pew-pewing people would be so much fun? But I think the game that does this the best is none other than my current favorite game. You know what it is. I always find an excuse to talk about it. It's the Finals. The Finals has so many different sponsors, and the sponsors directly affect this game throughout. From all the different cosmetics that you're wearing, no single colorful cosmetic in this game is not going to have some brand on it, like Aspuz, Alpha Acta, Isolt, Engimo. You get it. But one of my favorite parts about the sponsors in this game is they also sponsor the different arenas that you play on. And since these sponsors have such distinct color variations, it drastically changes the colors of the maps that you play on. I've always compared the Finals color aesthetic to a game like Mirror's Edge, and I think because they include these sponsors throughout the map's design layout, and they fully paint those areas in those colors, it just adds to it every time. And every season when they add a new sponsor or change the sponsor, it just feels so nice. There's even a sponsor called CNS that hacked the game and gave us some of the best maps like Sis Horizon. And on top of that, they have these really cool animations for the sponsors. They don't have to do this, but it just adds to the world that they're trying to build. And it makes me want to actually buy an Aspuz if it wasn't $40, but I just want to taste it once, okay? I really love when video games create fake companies in their games. It kind of grounds the game in realism, even if the game itself is not realistic at all. And while a majority of these companies are completely evil, is that really much different than real life? So let me know in the comments down below what your favorite fictional game company is, and why, especially if I didn't include it in this video. I have not played every single game under the sun. But anyways, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you later.